Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. We have something super amazing to take a look at today, and you might be looking at this, and if you've been a viewer of my channel for quite a little while, you might think, well, I think you've reviewed this before. You're kind of right, I have, but what's cool about this is a little ways back, probably last year sometime, I think it was, Star Ace had actually contacted me themselves to ask me to review a prototype of this for them, and they had sent the prototype over. I had reviewed it for them and then sent it back to them so that they could actually create the model itself. This is the Wonders of the Wild series Concavenator. This is a sculpt by Sean Cooper, which is even cooler because Sean Cooper is an amazing sculptor. But this is the actual final product, the official release of this. So a lot of people back then were like, probably thinking, okay, this is what the prototype looks like. What will the final product look like? Well, we now have the final product to check that out and show you guys exactly how this turned out, which I think is really cool to have that entire thing kind of come full circle here, where I've had the prototype on to review, and now I have the actual release to review, which is absolutely incredible. And I also get to include this in my collection finally, so I'm making this even better because, again, it was pretty sad sending it back last time. But this one is mine. So as far as the box art goes, you can see a beautiful image of the Concavenator here on the front, kind of running through a forest setting. Definitely looks amazing. Beautiful kind of glossy look to the box as well. You can see that it is a prehistoric creatures polyresin statue. It also states that it has a detailed environment base and also actually has a nameplate, it seems, because there seems to be a nameplate right there. And definitely, again, a really, really high quality box. Definitely a nice image there on the front. If we look over here to the side, you've got another super cool image of the model there. Probably one of the flashiest, most incredible looking Concavenator models that has ever existed. And then here on the back of the box, you can see another image of the Concavenator. You can also see the coelacanth, which is also available, which I really cannot wait to get my hands on and get a review up of it, because that is probably the nicest coelacanth model that has ever existed. But you can again see information here on the back about Star Ace, as well as the Wonders of the Wild series and the Concavenator itself, which is always really fun. And then over here on the other side, we again have an image there of the Concavenator. And then it's a little bit upside down right now, but up here on the top, yet again, another image of our Concavenator. So I have waited a very long time to get this in my hands and get a follow-up review for you guys. So let's pop this out of the box and do just that. So straight away, here is our base, which looks just as beautiful as I recall it looking with the prototype, but definitely looks really nice with the stand and everything here underneath. The underside also sports the Wonders of the Wild logo, which I love this line. There's a lot coming out in this line that I am just over the moon excited about, but you can again see Concavenator. You can also see the Star Ace X Plus and Sean Cooper logos down here, so looking really nice. We also have those kind of circles there on the bottom to keep it stable, stop it from moving around, and also make sure that it doesn't damage anything that it sits on. And then we do, in fact, have the Concavenator nameplate, which is really cool. You can also see that it has some information on the Concavenator. So when it comes to displaying this model, that's pretty much the perfect way to go, would be to have that little nameplate there next to it. And then the star of the show, if I could find the peg hole, we have the Concavenator itself. And that is just absolutely beautiful. It's been a little while since I had actually seen the prototype in hand. It's been quite some time actually since that review, but having this here, it absolutely looks as though I remember it from the prototype. So they did a great job of actually painting this up as far as the factory goes. Honestly, I think it might look even better here with this version, the actual factory-produced version. And man, such a flashy, incredible looking sculpt, and definitely a very cool look for a Concavenator. So unique and so cool looking. I love the quills all over it. It's just incredible looking. You've got some nice feathering on the Concavenator and a really appealing looking, very naturalistic paint scheme and paint application. I am definitely a huge fan of the paint scheme that they had gone with on this Concavenator. So we're going to go ahead, jump straight to a closer look at this beauty right now. So as far as the actual sculpting and detailing and all of that goes, we really don't need to take a look at any of those aspects because we have actually reviewed the sculpt of this when we had the prototype here to take a look at. We already have taken a look overall at the entire sculpt of the model. It is an amazing model, so we don't really need to comment on that again. If you would like to see more of a detailed review of the actual sculpt, I will include a link at the end of the video, but also in the description of the original review of this. But as far as this figure here goes, this model goes, we basically want to take a look at what the factory has done with it and take a look at how good the final product is as far as the paint job. So as you can see, we do have a really nice appearance to our Concavenator's head sculpt as far as the coloration goes, and they've added in a lot of different colors here on the head sculpt of the Concavenator, which really adds a nice element of realism to it. Like just right down here, you can see we have a beautiful light bluish gray, but we also have like some kind of almost like light tan coloration. I don't know if it's been dry brushed on there, but I can absolutely pick up on different tones of color right there in the lower jaw. You can see a little bit of the feathering right there has a slightly different coloration to it. And then leading up here, you can see a little hint of like almost like an orangish or like a tannish tone there in the nostrils. The nostrils themselves are highlighted nicely with a darker tone of color. And then leading back here, you can again see the same style of variation of color that we see on the lower jaw with kind of like bluish grays as well as tans. We start to pick up on some oranges there in the palate area. You can also see an orange running up over here on the top of the dinosaur's head here on that like crest-like area. The eyes are painted very nicely. You can see they look incredibly lifelike. Like it almost legitimately looks like a real animal's eye here kind of creeping over and looking at me, which is quite possibly the best compliment you can give a model if the eye looks incredibly lifelike like that. You can see we also get some darker tones as we lead back here a little bit further into the head, kind of like some really dark grays. It looks like we've been given a nice dark wash on the model, but you can continue to see those orange elements and stuff throughout, kind of like orangish browns. You can see more of that there circling around the eye socket as well as, some beautiful coloration there. You can also see that the mouth, again, is being sculpted in an open position, gives us an opportunity to take a look at the inside of the mouth. We have a really nice kind of like a dark, almost maroonish tone for the inside of the mouth. We definitely have a wash that's been applied in there as well, as I can see a little bit of color variation to the inside of the mouth of our Concavenator. Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely some nice color in there and a little bit of a glossy look, but it's not overly glossy. Definitely gives it that saliva-like look, but isn't like anything that looks like the dinosaur just has too much saliva or like a drooling problem. Like it definitely has that wet look in there, but it's not overly wet. You can also see the teeth are all painted very nicely with a variation of an off-white. Let me turn this around here, take a look at the opposing side of the head. Definitely has a really nice kind of an off-white to it, almost bordering on a light brown, which adds a nice element of realism as well because it doesn't brush its teeth or anything. It has that nice, very realistic look to the teeth as far as the coloration goes and kind of almost slightly being dirty. You can also see that we have a very nicely painted eye again over here. We get a nice shot of it. There you go. You can see the nicely painted eye as well as that gorgeous coloration to our Concavenator. And then you can again see those quills that lead off of the back of the neck all have a very vibrant orange to them, but it's again a very naturalistic tone of orange, I think, that I could completely see, being on a living, breathing dinosaur like this. It doesn't look unrealistic or anything by any means. You can also see some darker grays here down in that kind of hanging skin in the throat, but we've also got a nice dry brushing over that to highlight that detail as well. And they've done a phenomenal job of making sure that we continue to highlight the feather detail through the model with, again, variations of like tans. There's even greens. You can see some greens right here, and then variations of oranges and orangish browns. And then as you continue to move along the incredible sculpt that we have here, you see that we reach that classic Concavenator hump on the back of the dinosaur. And I like how as we come up here, you can see it transitions to a dark tone here at the bottom of these quills, but then we have those really cool looking quills that lead out again in that really nice vibrant orange like we saw up there on those quills in the back of the neck. But then they also transition to kind of like a nice variation of almost like a white with little hints of blues as you lead out toward the tips of those really cool quills, and you see that same look back here again, exactly the same as far as the way that it's colored, continuing to give this that really nice flashy appearance. And you have a few more quills, but these are a little bit of like a darker orange. They're not quite as vibrant as these really flashy ones you see here, and you continue to have that look as you lead out the length of the tail as far as the feather detail runs. And again, we have more of that really nice feather detail. You can even pick up on like some greenish tones right there in that area, also leading down into the body, into the skin texture of our Concavenator. You can again see some nice light grays as well as some variations of tans that have been applied, and we also have darker tones with kind of like a dark gray. You see that same look here in the stomach region, kind of highlighting the rib cage. And moving down here into the arm as well, you can see that the feathers, of course, stop right here. So we lead back into the skin texture of the arm, and we again have those same types of tones of color. But you can see a little bit more of like an orangish brown right there running off of those feathers as you lead down the back of the arm. And then again, some more really flashy quills with an incredibly appealing orange right there. It even looks like it's a slightly different shade of orange, potentially, than the quills that we see on the back of the neck. Like it's slightly darker, but almost a little more vibrant. And then we do have some really nicely painted nails. The nails, first of all, sculpt-wise, look amazing. They look super, super realistic. But you can also see again that we have kind of like a nice, sort of like a light gray with little hints of tans for the nails, which are painted to perfection. And then you can also see another area of the feathering and everything here leading down as we start to pick up on some variations of browns in the leg. You can just see slightly different tones of color in the feathered areas, and then some more browns as you lead down that incredibly bird-like foot sculpt. And then again, the very nicely painted nails, just like we saw up there on the hands. And then as you continue to lead out, you kind of have like a striping effect in the skin textured area. So up here you see again the feathers kind of obscure that striping, but you can see that we have that darker striping, almost like a black. And then actually the feathers taper away here, and then you only have that, light and dark striping as you lead out the length of the tail, which is in a really cool kind of a curve there as the dinosaur has the tail upward quite high. And then looking at the opposing side again, color-wise, everything should match pretty much to the way we saw it on the initial side, and it absolutely does. Like, it looks phenomenal. I also love how they've sculpted the arms, how Sean Cooper sculpted the arms held into the body in what I would say would be a really nice natural position. Definitely a big fan of that. And again, all of the skin-textured areas are very consistent with what we had seen on the initial side. You have that nice tone of brown running down the foot, and just an overall gorgeous looking Concavenator. Definitely one of the most beautiful prehistoric models I think I've ever seen when it comes to this species. This thing is just great all around. And then as far as our base goes, you can see again we have that nice earthy area, obviously, focusing on this running through a forested area, which we saw in the box. You can see again that we have the footprint of the dinosaur, as well as the peg hole where you would place your Concavenator. You can also see some footprints of some smaller dinosaurs that have clearly been through this area. Potentially what this dinosaur here, this Concavenator, is doing in the area. Maybe it's searching for one of these guys so that it can get itself a nice meal. But you can see as far as the earthy area goes, it looks really, really good. You've got a nice tree over here that's also beautifully painted. Nice mossy look again to the majority of the base. As again, this isn't a forest, so you would probably expect to see that type of a look for this area at this point in time. And you've also got some stones and rocks and stuff throughout. So just adding another element of awesomeness to this entire scene and really bringing it to life with a gorgeous base as far as the sculpt goes, but also some beautiful paint applied to it as well. And then, of course, your Concavenator nameplate, which isn't really the most exciting aspect of this, but an absolutely awesome addition to this set because it really adds a nice element of professionalism, I think, to the set, and is just a really cool addition to the set to have that nameplate there when you have it up displayed. Anybody comes into your house, they'll see exactly what type of species they're looking at and also learn a little bit about it, and probably would be a really nice conversation starter. So definitely an incredible set, beyond worth the wait, and now I have probably my favorite Concavenator in my collection. And then again, just in case you didn't catch it at the beginning of the review, there's a peg here on the foot. You just have to find the little hole on the base, slide that in, and then basically put the foot into the footprint in the right spot. There we go. And it stands again. Oh, now it just dropped into place. There we go. And it stands perfectly. We're going to go ahead, even though we have already measured the model prior, we'll measure it again just because it's been a little while. So for a length, you were looking at about 11 3/4 inches. Maybe, actually, yeah, if you go to the lower jaw, from the tail to the lower jaw, you're looking at pretty much like a foot or a little bit over, closing in on about 31 centimeters. And then for a height, the highest point is definitely the tail, because that tail is held really quite far upright. You're looking at about 9 1/4 inches, or around 23 1/2 centimeters for a size comparison. I figured we would only do one comparison because, again, we've already reviewed the model in the past. We've already done comparisons with it, but here we have Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our beautiful Wonders of the Wild Concavenator. Again, to help give you a good idea of the fact that even though the Concavenator itself isn't huge, pretty long though with that really nice tail, but it's not a massive model like you normally see with like most like resin models and even most Star Ace models. Like if you look at the Ray Harryhausen line, there's a lot of really big models in that line. This Concavenator isn't quite as large as what you usually see with those, but I feel like it is a perfect size. It's not too big, but still sports a pretty impressive size. And once actually up on the base, it really does have a beautiful size. And again, like I said, probably in my opinion, like that perfect desktop size where it's just going to look incredible, but not take up too much space in your collection. Definitely awesome all around. So I am so happy to finally have this now back in my hands. Again, after having the prototype, I was completely in love with that model, and it was pretty sad to have to send that back to Star Ace, but now I actually have my own. I have it here in my collection, and this Concavenator is just drop dead gorgeous. Probably one of the most interesting yet flashy Concavenator reconstructions I think I've ever seen. Such a unique take on the animal and a really, really neat looking take on it. Like the idea of the quills kind of hanging off of the back of the neck and the arms, and especially off of the humps there on the back, just make this probably the flashiest looking Concavenator that I have ever seen. And again, sculpt wise, it is just so phenomenal with that really nice kind of running pose as it's obviously treading through the forest looking for something to eat potentially. I'm not too sure exactly what this Concavenator is doing or where it's headed, but it definitely looks to be headed somewhere in a hurry, as it obviously is, again, running, giving it a really nice action pose, just a really cool dynamic appearance, and again, probably the most beautiful Concavenator sculpt I think I've ever seen. And then, of course, the paint job, which is basically what we needed to look at with this review, because again, you really want to see what it looks like with the final factory produced product, and that's exactly what we do have here again. So if you order your Concavenator, this is what you're gonna get. And man, did they ever just blow this out of the water on this paint job. The paint job is phenomenal, incredibly lifelike, super realistic, and honestly I would say it looks better here on the actual factory produced version than the original prototype. Like it just looks so beautiful all around, so incredible. The paint job really highlights the sculpt, especially in the feather detail. Like that feather detail just looks so real and so lifelike on the model. It is just jaw-dropping here in person. And then, of course, the addition of the incredible base and the awesome nameplate and everything just combines to give you a museum-worthy product here with this Concavenator. And there are actually deluxe versions of the Wonders of the Wild models, so you can actually get this with a very cool fossil replica of the Concavenator as well, and that's something that they're doing with every one of these releases. So you can either get the standard version, which is what you see here, or the deluxe version again and snag yourself that awesome fossil replica. One way or another, I highly recommend grabbing this because it is absolutely amazing. So make sure you check the link in the description. Go grab yourself this beautiful Wonders of the Wild Concavenator and check out some more of the Wonders of the Wild models that they have out currently, as there is also a mammoth, there is a coelacanth, there is a Dunkleosteus, as well as a brand new Spinosaurus that was just announced. So lots of incredible stuff coming, and I'm sure lots more coming. So again, check the link that I will include in the description. Go grab yourself this fantastic Concavenator before it sells out, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe before you do, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.